Hi, everybody. Waiting for next year.com podcast. On the other end of the line is another old man at an emo concert, Jeff.
Hello. Yes, we definitely looked like somebody's ride when we got together at the back of that concert this week. Like there were definitely kids who just thought we were there to pick up our kids from the concert.
But surprisingly, I thought that we were not completely and totally and utterly out of place at Mayhall's or Mayall's or however you pronounce that in Lakewood this week.
No, we've definitely met up for shows there that felt worse than that. So maybe we're getting younger. Maybe that's how this works. Or everybody else is getting older.
Oh, I feel doubly old today. My youngest just turned 6 today, so I got that going for me.
Happy birthday to him.
Indeed. All right, I want to start in a weird place. I want to talk about Facebook because I listened to a podcast. It's really good for me anyway. I have a tough time recommending this one to anybody else because I think it's kind of a custom-built podcast for me in a lot of ways. It's called Grumpy Old Geeks, and they talk about tech news in a way that I feel like I understand and comes from my perspective. But they have an app, a plugin on Chrome that allows you to clean up your Facebook feed. It alters the way that you see it. It takes away the ads, and you can customize it so you don't see any of the pages and stuff. But this one feature it has allows you to see I don't even know how it does this, but it allows you to see all the people who have deactivated, all the people that you are friends with who have deactivated their Facebook accounts.
Oh, that's interesting. So all the smart people.
Pretty much. It also
shows you all your friends who are stronger than you.
And it also lets you know when you've been unfriended.
Oh, see, that would be fun. I always want that for Twitter, too. I know that. I think there are things like that for Twitter, but I always find that interesting.
Would it be fun, or would it be tantalizing and really unuseful?
I don't get too into it. Like, I pretty much understand why somebody would unfollow me. I don't understand why somebody would follow me.
That's so funny.
So, like, I don't get too upset about it. I'm not like a person who, if I realize somebody I follow unfollowed me, I'll unfollow them. Like, I don't get into that. It's fine. I'll follow somebody if I'm okay with them not liking me. But I find it interesting more just because it gives you a little peek into those people's psyche kind of a thing. Like, I think that's interesting for the Facebook thing. Like, okay, like this person clearly had a reason for this, and what was that? That's kind of interesting to think about.
And I have gotten better, by the way, because I used to get, when somebody would unfriend me, I get kind of weird about it, or like, well, what did I do? And sometimes it's just them. Sometimes it's something that they're going through.
I worry more that somebody's going to think I'm a jerk. Like we kind of talked about it behind the scenes this week, that Twitter is so obsessed with these algorithms that make people, that show you tweets from people. And there's a couple of people that show up in my timeline so much that I had to decide whether I was going to mute them or just follow them, because I was seeing every one of their tweets anyway, and it didn't make sense to continue. And like, to me, muting somebody like just felt mean or bad, or like not fair to them, because it wasn't that their tweets were bad. It was just that I was seeing them all the time. So I ended up just following those people. And so for me, I worry about that side more than anything, that they're going to think I'm a jerk. I don't care if they're a jerk. I don't want them to think I'm a jerk.
That's such an interesting, it's a self-centered perspective, but it's not like arrogant.
Yeah, like I was really worried about it. So I've been gaining new followers. Twitter's been, their little algorithm is working because I'm following people out of just being so tired of seeing all of their tweets. I'm so sick of their tweets that I had no other choice but to follow them, is where we are with Twitter right now.
Which is a weird thing, a weird solution to that problem.
Yes, to the problem that they created.
So are you watching opening night football? It's Thursday night, and the NFL has some kind of a football doubleheader, I believe.
Oh, I didn't know there was a second game. I was watching until we got on the phone, and then I didn't want to be the guy who live announces a sporting event that already happened on his podcast, which I invariably would do if I was watching right now. So I decided to leave the room.
Yeah, that's it's usually an impossible thing if the Indians are playing while you're talking to TD because he just can't help himself. He's so obsessed. He might be as obsessed as any Indians fan in the entire city. And so if there are pitches going on and hits and home runs, he can't help himself. And I don't blame him.
And we've all like listened to that podcast where like they're like, oh, ah, and they're just kind of making noises and talking about it. And you're like, yes, we all experienced that. That was it was the in case you missed it Twitter function before there wasn't in case you missed a Twitter function.
Although, do you listen to Joe Rogan's podcast? Because he does Fight Companions, where he'll do commentary tracks to UFC or MMA fights that he's not announcing.
Oh, see, that would be interesting because at least you're learning something that way.
Yeah, they are interesting listens, even though it's like live blogging, live podcasting, something you probably already watched.
Yeah, but at least he's providing some value. You know, a lot of times if you're just talking about it on a podcast, you're just kind of reacting, and there's not always... Now, if it's something that really interesting to happen, it might be interesting to hear that. But if it's just a home run or something, it's not as interesting.
So when do the Dolphins play their first game? What's your ritual? How are you going to watch it?
We'll see. Lately I've been streaming. My brother and I kind of do splitsy on a Sunday ticket package, so he gets to watch it on TV and I get to watch the streaming. So I'll probably... What I normally do is the terrible dad thing where I just like sneak it on my phone while I'm playing with the kids or something like that. I have it on next to me, or I'm at a sporting event for them and actually just checking my phone a million times. So since I'm a Dolphins fan, I'm much more used to not seeing every game, so I can handle box score watching or watching through Twitter, that kind of thing.
See, there was a point in time where whenever I considered moving, it was like, all right, well, I got to factor in the DirecTV because there's no way I'm not going to watch the Browns live. And somehow I got cured of that. But you probably had to grow up not being able to see most games.
I want to say 8 to 10 years without missing a single game somehow. Driving to sports bars, getting Sunday ticket, doing all that kind of stuff, which is a way bigger pain than it's given credit for. I mean, by the time you drive to a sports bar and sit there for 4 hours eating greasy food and drinking beer and then drive home, that's a good part of your day, because then you get home and you're exhausted and tired because you've been watching football and eating greasy food and drinking beer all day. It pretty much took your entire Sunday. So, once I kind of got married and all that kind of stuff, that went away. But yeah, I went a long time without missing a game. And you do kind of have to train yourself into that whole not seeing it and being okay with it, because we're all so ridiculously obsessed with this stuff and can't handle that.
So when the Browns came back, I was still in college, and DirecTV and Sunday Ticket already existed, but they weren't this like pervasive thing in every single bar. And so there were only certain sports bars that had Sunday Ticket. And so I didn't have enough money to go to a sports bar and eat and drink every single weekend to watch the Browns. So in those days, I think I paid like $20 or $30 to some online service that gave me the Browns on the radio. So I listened to Jim Donovan from my apartment in Boston as a student, and that was like my backup plan. And then I'd have to wait for ESPN News and Sports Center to see the highlights.
MIDI file. Do you remember when the internet was just MIDI files?
Oh, I forgot about the MIDI files. The automatically loading ones in the background.
Oh, yeah. I want a Jim Donovan version of that. But no, that's pretty interesting. I kind of had the same thing when I first moved to Cleveland. Is it 10 years ago or more now? I drove all the way from like the flats to the east side to watch at some bar over there, because it was the only place I knew. That I just moved here and it was the only place I knew, and it just kind of became a ritual. So yeah, it became like this huge time consuming thing to drive all the way over there and all that kind of stuff. So
I wonder sometimes if they've reduced the specialness by making it so easy to consume. I mean, obviously you wouldn't do it any differently, but it certainly has changed things.
Yeah, and I was talking about that with a coworker today, actually, about how much the Thursday night games just feel like excess. Like when the Thursday night games come on, it's always, you want to be excited for it, and then it's always kind of a crappy game because these teams aren't recovered from Sunday and haven't had time to game plan, and you already have football day on Sunday, and there's college football on Saturday, and you get football on Monday, and like the Thursday one, I feel like was the tipping point where I was like, you know what, this is too much football. This is more football than I needed.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you. I think that's part of it, and then the other part of it is that there I don't there's just some, like, the access is great and it's all we've ever wanted, but I feel the same way with music too, where there was some risk involved with buying a CD, and if you didn't like that CD, you kind of had to live with it for a little bit because you couldn't afford to just go out and buy another $15 CD. And now with Spotify, I'm just like banging through stuff all the time, and on even on Netflix with TV shows, we're never going to have another Sopranos. We're never going to have, yeah, there's going to Game of Thrones is winding down, but I don't know if there'll ever be another Game of Thrones.
Yeah, I agree with that. The anticipation and all of that comes with it. And I always wonder that with music. Like, do kids today connect with a record or an album the same way that we did? Because we only had so many. So your choices when you sat down to listen to music were so few that you listen to the same one a million times because you just kind of had to. And things are so disposable now that you might give something one listen and not come back. And I can't tell you how many records I bought and didn't like until the fifth time I got through it or something like that. And there's just no need to do that anymore. And so you only kind of stick with the stuff that's quick and connects right away.
Yeah, and it was special when you were able to find an NFL football game on. Just like, I think it's even more so in baseball, and we've probably talked about it on this podcast, but I used to watch Sunday Night Baseball regardless of who was playing.
Yeah, I think baseball's a big one for that, where it became so easy to watch any game that people stopped watching any games,
Yeah, you just take it, you watch the opening week of the season, you watch the playoffs probably, and you take the rest of the season for granted because there's so much supply.
Right. No, I definitely agree with that. And because I think the NBA is expanding too, if I'm not mistaken, to an extra night or two per week. And I kind of worry about the same thing. Where like Thursday night, NBA night is super fun. You normally got a couple of really good games. They're going to be on TNT and you can watch. And that was always really exciting. So I do kind of worry about that happening. Similar thing with the NBA.
Yeah, it'll be interesting because of all the sports, Mark Cuban is the one who said that the NFL was headed for trouble. Something about what hogs get slaughtered or something. But and he's kind of right. You get too piggy, you get too crazy with the schedule. You try and create too many time slots, and you probably just water down the product. And even if you're not watering down the product, people will tire out of it.
Yeah, I think, and it's probably still a good business decision for all of them. Like, I'm sure they're all still making way more money, but it just creates a little bit of apathy with the fans where it's not as high important of a ticket as it was.
It's interesting though, because with all the the quote unquote protect the shield stuff that the NFL proclaims to do, this is one of the times where it feels like a lot of short-term thinking and not a lot of long-term thinking.
Yeah, and I don't know that I ever think that I think all that long term, but yeah, it definitely is. And once they add in the Saturday games, it's terrible. But to me, and I'm coming back to the Thursday night game ones, because those to me are the ones that it's also a bad product. Like, it's not a sport that you can just reload that quickly. Baseball and basketball, it's more just how many are you going to air. But with football, you really have to switch everything around to have that Thursday night game, and it screws up teams before and after that Thursday night game. And a Thursday night game is really a mess, and it feels more randomized than a normal game, I think, because of the time to recover and the time to come up with game plans and all that. I mean, you're cutting off multiple days from a team being able to plan for their opponent. And I really think the product on that one is poor.
Do you think it's kind of like interleague play, where maybe it was kind of a good idea for a while, and even though it's not the best product, the novelty wore off and they just couldn't stop it because the business side of it made too much sense?
Yeah, I think that's a good analogy, because it was fun when it started, and there's still weeks where I'm excited about it, and every now and then there's a matchup that still gets you going. But on the whole, it feels more like it's doing damage to everything than it is doing good. It rearranges so many other things that I just can't imagine at the end of the day that it's good for the league.
Well, and as a Browns fan, with what the Browns have been through the last few years, I love having a Thursday night game because that frees up my Sunday, which is totally the wrong way to think about it.
Oh yeah, if your team plays on that, or if they play like the London game, is there anything better than your team playing the London game?
No, that's really great. But the idea that you're trying to free up your Sunday from your football team, which is something you're supposed to enjoy, that you want to distract you on a normal Sunday, that probably says more about your relationship to your football team.
Isn't it weird? Like, how often over the last however many years have the Browns brought you even just like good entertainment? Like, not even like winning happy, but just I'm satisfied and entertained with this.
There was the Josh Gordon season, and before that, it was select Josh Cribbs games, probably.
Isn't that weird that we spend this much time on something that's supposed to be entertainment that is rarely makes us happy?
Yes.
Because I get that even with being a Dolphins fan, they're 6-10 or 7-9 every year, but I don't enjoy the wins as much as I hate the losses, and that's just such a weird place to be as a sports fan.
Yeah, it is. It is, but there are so few games, you don't get the casual fun of what you could get from a baseball season. Like, there are Twins fans, there are White Sox fans who've enjoyed parts of this season.
Right, and I don't think rebuilds aren't as fun in the NFL either.
No.
Yeah, like in baseball or basketball, you're watching these young kids come up and you're seeing what they have and you're watching them grow. But in the NFL, you don't get that same feeling as much. Everything's a lot more fleeting. A guy might be good one year, but it normally doesn't mean all that much down the road. Those guys they just don't change everything as much, and careers are shorter and contracts are short and everything else. So it's not like you watch some linebacker be really good one year and you're thinking, all right, well, in 3 or 4 years, he's going to be part of a really great defense.
So do your kids? I know you're one of your kids is way too young, but does your oldest care at all about sports?
I've tried to get her into it a little bit. She loves to play sports, so she's very competitive to play sports, but to sit down and watch, not a lot. Baseball, she doesn't get too much. Football, she understands a little bit. She'll watch basketball with me a little bit. She definitely understands that one the most of all of them. It's also pretty easy. Just put the ball in the hoop. But she's not like a fan, so I haven't shared like that kind of thing with her yet. What about you?
So my oldest specifically out of the blue asked to go to a Browns game this year, which I thought was odd. It's not a tradition we've reinforced, especially because we gave up the tickets after the Dallas game in Sashi Brown's first year. In 2016, the Dallas game, that was pretty much when I think that was the last football game I went to. And that was the only one Ben ever went to. But now he is specifically requesting, and he said something about because the team was as bad as it could be last year, that it had to be better this year. And that was his reason for wanting to go.
Man, he like father like son, huh? Like he got that gene like real early there with the there's always next year mentality. It's always got to be better.
Yeah, I think he's even right too. But it's
it'll
so
definitely
strange.
be more fun. Are you going to take him?
I think I'll try and find an opportunity to do it. It was just so strange because of all people, I probably shouldn't have been unprepared for it, but I kind of was.
That's interesting. Yeah, and I'm sure like you grew up watching with your parents and stuff, right? Like that. Is that how you became a sports fan?
Yeah, I watched. We watched every Sunday with my dad, and whatever away games and games that he didn't go to, and then by the time I was probably 8 or 9 or 10, somewhere around there, I got to go to a couple of games, usually one game a year. And those were serious learning experiences for me to be around Browns culture in the late 80s, early 90s.
Learn lots of new words and stuff like that.
Oh yeah, but it was good. It was good for my dad to, teach me about time and place and, this is that person's crazy and drunk, and we'd stay away from people like that. He would tell me things about how when you're driving through bad neighborhoods, you don't follow too closely because if you have to drive around somebody, you want to be able to do it. And because he was not the guy who took the freeway to Ninth. He'd always hatch his way through the side streets downtown.
That's pretty funny. But so yeah, so he's following the same kind of time frame and footsteps that you did, right?
Yeah.
And so it's interesting that we don't think of that. Like I don't think of it's hard to think of yourself as your parents, right? So you're not thinking of them hitting that same, but it's this milestone probably at the same time you did. So it's kind of cool.
Well, and he's this post-millennial age group with growing up with the internet and video games and iPads and all these different things, and so much has changed, and yet so many things are kind of the same.
Yeah, and my kid loves to go to games. So like baseball games, she always wants to go to baseball games, and a lot of that's because there's cotton candy there, and just a lot to do. But I do think that for as much ink is spilled about these generations growing up in technology, they do still really value live events and going places and doing things.
Oh, I think the stats say that they value it more, which I think is pretty cool.
Yeah, that's really interesting. But what about the birthday boy, the younger one? Does he into it?
He is in it for the live event. He would not watch anything on TV. He wouldn't watch any sports on TV, at least not yet. But he's also he's still at that age where he would prefer to do gymnastics in the side of the room while we're watching TV. He's just constantly doing somersaults and tumbling and crazy stuff.
Yeah, and I kind of have a lot of like my daughter doesn't mind to sit and watch, and she understands what's happening, and she'll cheer for me if I'm cheering. But yeah, we're definitely playing Barbie while we're watching or something like that.
Yeah, I just don't think he gets competitive for other people yet.
Yeah, I agree with that. And that's one of the things that bums me out about LeBron leaving is I kind of had her into LeBron and into that whole idea. And we went to a game, and I know you took your son to a game too. And so she was into that. And so when he left, it was kind of like I lost that chance to really get that going because she was just on the verge of really getting into that. That's something that's easy for a kid of that age to understand. Like this is the best in the world at something. Well, and we're going to win most of the games.
And randomly, my just now 6-year-old will occasionally look at me in a random scenario and just say, Dad, I think LeBron James made a mistake going to Los Angeles.
Doesn't that just break your heart?
Yeah, I mean, you take him to his first game, LeBron hits a game winner in the playoffs. It's like this thing, and it was so fleeting. It's so fleeting for him.
Right, and you don't know how much, that was, it could have been the start of something that was going to continue for a long time and be this amazing, thing that you guys kind of shared, and now it's kind of in limbo. You don't know where that sports fandom will go, and yeah, because that's kind of where I'm at with it.
It's probably fine though, because Ben's first game was when Kyrie Irving went off against the Blazers. I don't know if he scored like 55 or 60 or what. LeBron was hurt and didn't play that game, and he just went nuts. And then Kyrie left, and Ben's been fine.
I need you to take me to my first game. Jeez, this is the streak that you're on with this.
It's pretty unbelievable, actually. That whole thing was incredible because as we were driving up to the game, they reported that LeBron wasn't going to play, and so he was kind of bummed. But I was kind of bummed, and Ben was like, "No, it'll still be fun." He was like almost talking me up, and then it turned out to be this unbelievably memorable game.
That's awesome. That's fun. Yeah, and there'll be plenty more of those. The Indians will be good for a while. The Browns hopefully will be good here, but it does suck to lose that one because that one's felt a little bit different. Yeah, with LeBron, everything feels a little bit different.
So other than that, I do try and get them out to like high school games and stuff too. So I'm trying to surround them with sports all the time, I guess. It seems like natural entertainment. I always do want to check out the local soccer team and the local football team, and I don't know. That I think that was ingrained in me as a student too, in back in high school when I was that age, and I've just kind of carried it on now that I'm kind of the suburban dad.
No, that's fun. It's so much fun to get involved in just the local high school and stuff like that, and follow those teams, especially when your kids are going to be coming through it someday.
So, are you taking your kids to see music too?
Not yet, like concerts and things for them.
Yeah.
So we've taken them to a lot of like, Sesame Street at Playhouse Theater or Disney on Ice. We've done some of that kind of stuff. But I've been contemplating when to take her to like a real concert kind of a thing. Like I was thinking if I could find something that's like earlier in the day at Nautica, that would be like a really good first concert experience.
Yeah, and you got to be careful because you just never know quite what you're going to expose them to. If it's a big rock show at the Q or a pop show at the Q, you just have no idea.
Right. So have you taken either of yours?
Yeah, so Ben, I think, yeah, when he finished the first grade, that was when I took him to Pittsburgh to see Tool,
Oh, that's cool.
which was crazy. That led to all kinds of questions, but that was that was an amazing one-on-one out of town trip. So there, like the Tool concert itself was 2.5 hours or whatever it was, but there was so much other stuff surrounding it that it was more than just a rock concert.
That's really fun. So my oldest is really into churches, and I've been dying for them to. I know they were just here not that long ago, but to come back through because I thought that would be like the perfect first show. Where
Are they coming back through?
they're not that I've seen. I'm saying when
Okay.
they come back through.
Yeah.
I thought that would be like a good first. They're kind of poppy. That I can't imagine the crowd's going to be too out of control. I thought that would be a good first band to go see.
No, that's a great one, and it's funny that you mentioned them because both of my kids absolutely love them, and we
They
talked
must
about
be.
going to see them in Chicago when we were there earlier in the year.
I have a coworker who said that her daughter is really into it. So they must just be like just poppy enough for kids to really get into it, but cool enough for us to all be okay with it, kind of a thing.
I'm a big fan too. I think their new album's really great. The second one was kind of okay. I love the first one though.
Yeah, I'm a huge fan. I love all their stuff too. I really enjoyed them, but that was one I thought would be a good first show kind of thing. Because I always worry about when they're super late, and so you're going to be keeping your kid up. They're going to be experiencing all that new stuff. All just the sensory overload of it being that loud and the lights. So I'd like to find something that was during the day, somewhat. Like something that started even just a little bit earlier.
Oh man, it's it's tough to come by though. It really is because they don't, and nor should they, I guess, gear these things towards kids. But it's a tough thing to figure out.
Yeah, and it's a fun thing that you want to try to share.
So
But
sometimes
yeah.
you just pack them up, take them to Pittsburgh, and go see Tool at 10 o'clock at night.
So did he know the songs and stuff like that? Like, is it a band that he had listened to with you in the car?
No, he knew them a lot more after, but no, it's not like I loaded up. And that's the other problem with Tool is they're not on Spotify or any of the other streaming services. But no, he definitely knows their stuff now. Although I wouldn't want him digging into a lyric sheet. That would lead to some questions that I'm just not prepared for. I mean,
I got
Daddy,
my
what
oldest
the
into
song? The song "Prison Sex" is really good. What does that mean?
I got my oldest into all these really old country songs because I listen to really old country stuff all the time. So she's listening to, El Paso and Big John and these songs that are really great, and they're just more or less stories, which makes her like them. But everybody dies in all these songs, so she's asking me all these questions, like, so what happens to him? I'm like, well, Big John let everybody out of the coal mine, and then it collapsed and he died. Like, I have to be honest about it, but it's like really funny that she's into all these songs, but they're a little too straightforward and graphic.
There's a lot of straightforward darkness in country music.
Oh yeah, and I listen to a lot of it, and like I said, it's fairly poppy. The really old stuff is kids can kind of grab onto it, but yeah, it doesn't hide much in the lyrics there.
Yeah, or somebody's getting really hammered and talking about women, and there's all kinds of weird stuff going on.
Oh yeah.
So is that so? You're an emo kid and a country kid?
Yeah, I don't know why those are the two places that I intersect, but that seems to be the two places I've gone. I get really into, and not just like country. Like I listen to like Marty Robbins and Tom T. Hall, like just really old stuff. And then you and I go see Hotelier on a Tuesday night at a bowling alley.
So you're not talking like Rascal Flatts and that pop country stuff.
No, I do like the really old stuff.
You mock all that Florida Georgia line stuff with us behind the scenes.
I did the pop country stuff a lot of my friends listened to in like college and high school. I grew up in the country, so high school, I knew all the lyrics to all the songs that were on the radio. Back then it was Keith Urban and, Kenny Chesney was just coming out in big, but yeah, I've kind of grown away from all that stuff.
Yeah, that was just peer pressure.
I also just find it extremely fascinating that country music, that all the genres have just kind of flipped around, where like country music is just pop music now with like lyrics about pickup trucks. Like there's nothing really country about country music anymore.
No, it's very much pop or hip hop with a twangy guitar.
Yeah, it's really interesting to me, and like pop music is just pretty much all hip hop now.
How much of that was Taylor Swift?
Oh yeah, when she kind of flipped over. But I find like when I listen to the radio, and that's the weird thing about Spotify and Netflix and all this, is it cuts you off from kind of what's actually happening in pop culture, because you're able to just escape in your own thing.
Oh,
but I
yeah,
find like
true.
when I listen to the radio or watch TV, I'm like, oh man, like this, I'm having a complete different experience with what's popular, what's cool right now.
Oh, well, I'm not sure where to go next. I think this was mildly about sports tonight.
I think we mentioned sports at least once.
There's just not much to talk about until the Indians are kind of limping to the not limping, but the baseball season is limping to the finish line, and the football season hasn't really started. That's one thing I can tell you is I was fantasy football free for 2 straight years, and my old team, after 2 years being manned by somebody else, came free again, and in the 11th hour they begged me to rejoin the league. And I think it's going to be very similar to my re-entry into Twitter, where I just have a healthier relationship to it. Because I jumped back in, I did the draft last night, but I just don't really care. So I'm going to take it for communicating with my old friends and not care about the outcome of the sports.
You're not going to be checking like weather reports for the city that your backup tight end is playing in to see if maybe you should start him over in the flex spot versus I hate fantasy football.
I used to do stuff like that. Now I'm going to merely make sure I have no inactive or players on their bye week in my starting lineup. That's all I'm going to do.
I have a similar thing this year where I normally run a big pick'em league, and I was up to like 80 people. And it just got to be too much for me to manage. And so this year I didn't run it. And I've been doing it for 5 or 6 years, like for a while now. And I just keep getting emails and texts from people asking what's going on. And I just didn't have it in me this year to run it. So I'm pick 'em free this year, at least from a commissioner standpoint. And it feels really nice because that was really stressful.
Well, maybe after a couple years off, you'll be able to come back and have a healthy relationship to it.
I'll be refreshed and able to do it.
Although if you're running it, it's hard.
Yeah, and there's just so many questions. Like there's just being a commissioner of any sports league is really terrible.
It is, and that's not my skill set. I'm like, when it comes to really hurting all the little details, and I'm not particularly great at that stuff.
Yeah, and I'm coordinating all those people and following up and keeping track of who's done what and who's signed up and who hasn't signed up, and yeah, it's just a lot of work. And there's like really no benefit. I don't know why so many people volunteer to do it. I mean, like we all play fantasy sports. We all have people who run these things, and it's terrible. Nobody enjoys it. It's like being the person who, when a group of people wants to go to a concert, being the one who buys the tickets for everybody. It's like that times 10.
Yeah, I've been that guy. I think I've retired as that guy too, because not only the last time I bought tickets for an entire group of people, I also bought like tickets that I considered to be pretty good. And I think a couple of people were kind of looking at me going, wait, we're spending how much per ticket? And I think I just have a different style than everybody else.
Right. And there's just too much pressure. Everybody's mad about something. You have to chase everybody down for, the money. Or so at the last minute somebody backs out and acts like they don't owe for the ticket, or just all that kind of stuff. But it all happens in fantasy sports, and it's all super annoying. So
That's why
I'm very much enjoying not doing it.
I'm just a lonely old man who buys single tickets for weeknight rock shows
At a bowling alley.
for emo bands at bowling alleys, and I get to meet my friend Jeff there sometimes.
Yeah, it works out pretty well.
I think that's a perfect place to stop.
Me too.
All right. Thanks for listening, everybody. We'll talk to you next time. It's been the waitingfornextyear.com podcast.